Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshakadine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So today I wanted to speak about the topic on the importance of appreciating and valuing the devotees, or in a broader scale, those people around us. So it's possible some of you heard me give this talk a little while ago, but I think it's one of those topics that you can, speak about over and over again, and we can't hear about it enough, about the importance of valuing each other and the devotees in our community. So, because what happens is gradually over time, as we get to know one another over the months and years, and maybe even many years and decades, it's hard for us to then at that time really value or appreciate the people that we're seeing on a regular basis. We kind of get used to them. Maybe we start taking people for granted a little bit. So that's when relationships can become familiar and even deteriorate to some degree. Right? So I think, whether it's a relationship that is personal at home, whether it's a relationship in the relationships within the corporate working environment, or whether it's relationship within our devotional community. I think relationships in all of these capacities require, a healthy dose of appreciation, mutual appreciation for each other's contributions. Because I think what happens is, over the years or over time, a lot of our mindset is, self-focused, which means we know exactly what we've done. We know all the services we've done. We've made a note of it in our mind. Every service we did, how long we did it for, how nicely we did it. We remember all of that. Whenever we help the devotee, we remember that. Because if we reach out to that person, they don't help us, we remember that too. So we also remember all the work. We also remember in our own personal relationships, all the things we did for the other person. We remember all of that. But it's hard to remember all the things the other person did for us. But the other person knows everything that they did. So we're all very self-focused. Or even in the workplace, right? In the workplace environment, same thing can kind of happen. Is that, we know what we've done to contribute to that environment. We remember very clearly what we've done to build that place up and the value we've brought to the table. But what we don't remember is the value that others are bringing to the table. Because no matter what, whether it's personal, spiritual, or professional environment, success is usually almost never an individual endeavor. It always takes many people to help one person succeed. Right? So, even if it's for example, take a temple community, you could have somebody who's a really big preacher. But in order for them to be able to preach like that, someone's cooking the meals, someone's keeping the place clean so they can go back and sleep there, right? Someone's, if you bring people back to the temple, there has to be somebody who's taking care of the altar and the deities. Otherwise, if that place is not attractive, then what are you bringing them back to? Or if there's no prasadam when the guests come, or if the temple is dirty and messy, so there's always many, many people involved for one person to be successful. And that's why I think it's so important that we always remember that whatever success that I'm having in my spiritual life, personal life, professional life, even in our personal life, for us to get anything done, there's so many people giving us emotional support, financial support, physical support, medical support, whatever it is, for us to have the success that we're having. It's always a team endeavor, again, in all three capacities, personal, professional, or spiritual. And appreciating devotees is something that I think we need to do on a regular basis, because appreciation, I feel like, is, and sometimes in our devotee community, devotee circles, because we're supposed to just be always humble, and that means that, I shouldn't look for appreciation. And yeah, of course, we shouldn't maybe look for it all the time. But as human beings, we like being appreciated. We need a little bit of that appreciation. We do need some level of appreciation to feel satisfied, and that's understandable. It does feel good to be appreciated. It's a human thing. Maybe it's a false ego thing, but it's a human thing. It does feel good to be appreciated. And it also feels good to appreciate others. Because when you brought a smile to someone else's face, you internally also feel happy. Like, wow, you did that, right? You made that happen. And so appreciating the devotees is an example that is set by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. He also appreciated devotees, right? Like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that whatever a great person does, common men follow, and whatever examples he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues, right? So whatever great people do, and then everyone else follows that. And so Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, set the example for us of appreciating devotees. So I'm going to read a few verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in which Lord Chaitanya is appreciating the devotees. So Lord Chaitanya is glorifying the devotees. The first devotee he glorifies, of course, Lord Nityananda, who's also the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in this case, the devotee here, because Lord Nityananda is also directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is always intoxicated with the madness of ecstatic love. Now he's going to glorify Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya perfectly knows the 6 philosophical theses. He is therefore the spiritual master of the entire world in teaching the 6 paths of philosophy. He's the best of devotees. Only by his mercy have I understood that devotional service to Krishna is the essence of all mystic yoga. So now he glorified Lord Nityananda, who's also the Supreme Lord, but now he's glorifying one of his devotees, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And now he will glorify one other devotee, Ramananda Roy. Srila Ramananda Roy is the ultimate knower of the transcendental mellows of Lord Krishna's devotional service. He has instructed me that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, this is Lord Chaitanya glorifying Ramananda Roy, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Nityananda Prabhu, and others as well. I just took out 3 examples. Now, what's important to understand, and how we can understand this a little bit deeper, if we look at the way that Mahaprabhu is appreciating, his appreciation is not over the top appreciation. I think we understand over the top way too much. Somebody did something and then it's like this much, right? The appreciation. And sometimes we do that in fun, but when we overly do it, it loses its value and meaning actually. Because then the person that you're appreciating feels like, well, I didn't do anything near that, so yeah, okay, it feels good. But you see what Lord Chaitanya is doing is he's being 2 things. His appreciation, there's 2 qualities to it. One is that the appreciation is accurate. Second thing, it's specific. Sometimes when we appreciate, it can be very general and broad, right? But here, Lord Chaitanya, how is he being accurate? He's not over the top. Example, he says Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of God himself. Well, that's accurate, right? That's accurate. He's not over the top. And, you know, and then he also says that he's always intoxicated with the madness of ecstatic love. That's also accurate, because Lord Nityananda always is like that. And then he explains about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He says he perfectly knows the 6 philosophical theses. That's accurate. And it's also specific. It's one specific appreciation. And then secondly, he says, only by his mercy have I understood devotional service to Krishna is the essence of all mystic yoga. Now, you could say that he's overly glorifying him, but in one sense, it's true. Because it was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that instructed Lord Chaitanya on the essence of the Vedas, right, for a whole week. So, to understand, Lord Chaitanya is not just going over the top, just way, way beyond, you know, like we'll just kind of sometimes glorify someone into making them feel like they're the avatar that just descended by, you know, sent by Krishna himself. And again, once in a while, okay, you can have fun with it. But really, what I like is that the idea is that it's accurate and it's specific. Now, we're going to go into some examples of devotees glorifying one another. So first, we saw that Lord Chaitanya glorifies the devotees, setting an example that that's what pleases him. He's doing it himself, so therefore we should do it too. Now we're going to see examples of devotees glorifying one another. First example that comes up is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, in which the sages of Naimisharanya are asking Sutta Goswami to speak the Bhagavatam to them. And they're saying that you have been blessed. They're glorifying him. You've been blessed by you're a good disciple. You've been blessed by your spiritual masters, and therefore you are qualified to teach us the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so you see, that's also really very specific, because he has been blessed by his spiritual masters, and he's been a good disciple, and therefore he is qualified. Of course, they are as qualified as him to speak. But see, the thing is, when these dialogues take place between pure devotees, the amazing thing is the devotees are equally ecstatic to hear and speak. It's not like they're only ecstatic to speak. Like, you know, some of us, maybe myself, I'm more ecstatic when I have to speak, not as ecstatic when I have to hear. Right? So, you know, but these pure devotees are equally ecstatic, because the ecstasy of these sages of Naimisharanya, they say, can you please tell us about Krishna? Could you please tell us about the avatars? And then they start speaking about Krishna automatically. They don't even realize, they just start speaking. They want to hear from him, and in their request, they start speaking about Krishna. So they're going to experience equal ecstasy in hearing and speaking, which is a really beautiful thing. Quite an amazing thing, actually. So first, they glorify him, so that, you know, to praise him, but also accurately, not blowing it out of proportion. And the next example is, again, going back to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, is devotees glorifying each other. It's Ramananda Roy glorifying Rupa Goswami. Ramananda Roy saying to Lord Chaitanya, because he read some of the verses that Rupa Goswami composed. And Ramananda Roy says, Rupa Goswami's poetic expressions, he began to praise Rupa Goswami's poetic expressions as if he had thousands of mouths. And then he says, Ramananda Roy said, this is not a poetic presentation, it is a continuous shower of nectar. So he's talking about Rupa Goswami's verses. It's a shower of nectar. Indeed, it is the essence of all ultimate realizations, appearing in the form of plays. And one more. The wonderful descriptions of Rupa Goswami are superb arrangements to express loving affairs, Hearing them will plunge the heart and ears of everyone into a whirlpool of transcendental bliss. So this is Ramananda Roy glorifying Rupa Goswami, again in two ways, accurately and specifically. He's very specific, right? He's saying that it's a continuous shower of nectar, and it is, because everyone there hearing it is going into ecstasy. And he says, hearing this will plunge the heart and ears of everyone into a whirlpool of transcendental bliss. So of course, once we get to that level, we've read so many of Rupa Goswami's verses, and we have not been plunged into a whirlpool of ecstatic love. Maybe someday we will, but just not now. We're still sitting on the beach. We haven't entered the deep water yet. So here again, it is specific and it is accurate. And this is, so like I said, first we saw the Lord glorifying the devotees. Now we see the devotees glorifying each other. And I think it's important that to understand, like, first and foremost, who is supposed to be doing the glorifying? I think that's really important to understand. Well, the better question is, who shouldn't be glorifying? We're all supposed to be glorifying each other. Right? Literally. And I talk about this, especially when I do my corporate seminars, that, like, if you want to create a good environment at work, you don't just have to wait for your manager or supervisor or the VP or something to glorify you and praise you. They should. It's absolutely 1,000,000% their responsibility to do so. But it's also every single individual's responsibility to appreciate their coworkers, because everybody should play a role in creating a positive workplace environment. So in the devotional community, everybody needs to play a role in creating a positive, encouraging environment for everyone else. Yes, ideally the culture is set by the leadership, because as I mentioned earlier, whatever the leaders do, everyone else will follow. But we shouldn't wait. Okay, I'm going to wait for them to set the culture. Okay, I'm just going to wait until they do it. I'm not saying anything. Forget it. Nope, not going there, right? So that's not the right attitude. We're all mature adults. It is absolutely 100% our duty and responsibility to appreciate the service of others when we see it being done. It's absolutely our responsibility to encourage our fellow devotees. Absolutely. How is it not? And if we're just waiting for someone else to do it, then, just think how much more pleased Krishna would be if we just went ahead and made somebody else happy. And you don't have to do anything big to make someone happy, right? Sometimes just a little appreciation can make someone happy. And you just please a devotee. You didn't have to do all that much. But be specific, right? Because sometimes if it's a very broad appreciation, then maybe that person doesn't know that you really noticed them and what they particularly did. And it feels so, just think about it. How do you feel when someone appreciates you in a very specific way? Doesn't it feel good? Does everybody feel good? When you get does anybody not feel good? Everybody feels good, right? So now, wouldn't it be great if we could just make others feel good? What's stopping us? No one's stopping us. We just have to pick up a phone and appreciate someone's service or appreciate them for something. So I think that's really important, that it's a simple way, our goal is to please Krishna. And we can do that in a simple way just by appreciating one another. Right? We don't need much to do that. It doesn't cost anything to do that. Now, what happens, what could potentially happen if a devotee has been serving for a long time and doesn't get appreciated. So I'm going to pick or not just a devotee, an individual, even in the workplace, right? Just kind of going back and forth a little, or even in a relationship. I'm going to pick an example from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a little bit extreme, okay? I'm just giving you a heads up. It's a little bit of an extreme example. I was trying to figure out something not so extreme. I couldn't figure it out. Maybe there is one. It just wouldn't come to mind, you know? So the example is that maybe I think most of us are familiar with the story, that King Chitraketu had millions of wives, but he didn't have a son. Somehow, the million wives he married could not give him a son. It's bewildering. He just must have had a really bad astrological chart. I don't know. Something wasn't working out. So he couldn't have a son. And then, of course, Angira Rishi was kind of, you know, flying through town and stopped by. And he said to the king that you just don't look happy. Like, what's wrong? You don't look happy. He said, I'm not. He said, how can someone who's hungry and thirsty be happy with flower garlands and sandalwood paste, right? Like if you're starving and you go to the temple and instead of getting prasad, someone's like, here's a nice garland, and you're like starving. Like, okay, fine. Oh, here's some sandalwood all over your forehead. Okay, you know? And so you really want some prasad. So no matter how nice the garland is, how good it's smelling, how exotic the flowers are, all you can do is think of a nice hot puri with some paneer sabji, right? That's all you can think of. And a big glob of halwa on your plate. That would make you happy. That would make me happy. I just described my menu, right? What I'm thinking of right now. So that's what he said, King Chitraketu. And so Angira Rishi said, okay, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to do a yajna for you so you can have a son. But that the son will cause you happiness and distress. But at that time, King Chitraketu was so desperate for a son, he didn't care what kind of distress that son would cause. He just wanted a son. So basically, what happened is one of his wives got pregnant. One of all of the millions, only one got pregnant, and they had a baby, and he's in ecstasy, and the wife that got pregnant is in ecstasy, and the other 999,999 aren't experiencing the same ecstasy as that one is. And what happens is now King Chitraketu, he's so enamored by this one wife that he starts to ignore and neglect the other wives. Right? He starts to ignore them because the most important one is the one with the baby for him, right? And so, being neglected by their husband, they became more and more envious every single day because they felt pretty much useless. They weren't feeling valued. They weren't feeling appreciated. They felt like they didn't even exist. They actually felt like even if they didn't exist, it wouldn't really matter to him. And that's a terrible thing to feel, right? I think we can all agree. That's a terrible thing to feel. Nobody wants to feel like they don't exist, like they don't matter. And so the things that envy can make us do, the envy in their heart made them put poison in the food of that child. The child got poisoned and he died. And the king, he was so out of his mind when he found out. The Bhagavatam explains he was crying so hard, he was almost blind from the tears. Like he couldn't see. He was crying that much. And when he got the news and he was making his way to his wife, it's explained he couldn't even walk all the way. He would walk and he would fall. He would get up, walk, and he'd fall again. Like he had almost lost his mind, actually. And so, like I said, this is an extreme example, but not so extreme in one sense if we look at real life, right? Envy can make us do some pretty nasty things to others. People in life, in history, have done horrible things to each other out of envy, right? And we might have even thought about doing some terrible things to others because of our envy. So it sounds extreme, but these kinds of things have happened. People will ruin other people's reputation because of envy and anger. It happens in devotee circles. It can happen anywhere, right? Anything that can happen outside can happen in devotee circles. We're not that pure yet. We're still pretty capable of some pretty crazy stuff. So, we got some nice tilak on our forehead, but inside there's still a lot of crazy, There's a lot of crazy sitting right behind a few millimeters behind that tilak. So this is just, when I think of like appreciation, and when I kind of explain, especially when I'm doing like seminars, is that we have, just like we have our financial bank account, we have an emotional bank account with every person that we interact with. And just like in a bank, you're doing two things. You're depositing and you're withdrawing. Would everybody agree here that making more deposits is a better way to maintain the bank account than making more withdrawals? Everybody agree? Yes, thumbs up. So now, if we make too many withdrawals and not enough deposits, there's you run the risk of like an overdraft fee and possibly the bank just closing your account, right? That's a high possibility of something like that happening. And so when we look at our relationships with others, we can think about how many deposits have I made with this devotee? And how many withdrawals have I made with this devotee? What's the balance? Right? That's something to think about. We should think about that, especially if you're about to give feedback. You really, really, really want to make sure you've, opened up that app. There is no such app yet, but I'm just going to say that there is an app that can show you your balance with this devotee. If like the appreciation is here and this is where the withdrawals have been, better not say anything. Just leave it alone, because once you close down that bank account, opening it up is going to be really tough. When you close your emotional bank account with someone, reopening that, it's a tough task. It's a really tough task. So we want to be able to analyze, are we making more deposits and withdrawals, whether in our home life, people at our home, which is of course harder because you're always with them, especially now, but still needs to be done. What about in our workplace with our colleagues? Have we made more withdrawals or deposits? And what about our devotee community? Are we making deposits? Are we making more withdrawals? What's going on? And this is something we do need to take inventory of, especially if there are devotees in our immediate community that we've had some difficult times with. Maybe one way to bridge that gap is to show some appreciation for that devotee in some mild way. Again, be accurate and be specific, so they don't feel like you're just blowing things out of proportion. So now I'm going to, because a lot of times what happens is, it happens in many ISKCON communities actually. We're famous for it. I think it even happens in maybe non-spiritual communities as well. Like when a new person comes, they're treated like royalty, but the existing ones sometimes fall through the cracks, right? Sometimes they fall through the crack. They don't get that value and appreciation. So they lose some motivation. But I think it is every single person's duty to make sure that person doesn't fall through the crack. If we've been around a little while, you take as much responsibility for them not showing up as a leadership. That's how I feel. Everybody is responsible for that devotee falling through the crack. Right? I think so, at least. We all have to take responsibility collectively, because it's called community. Right? We're coming together, communing there for the purpose of making spiritual advancement. So we all are responsible. Who's responsible for that devotee? All of us. Why? I dropped the ball. Maybe the managers dropped the ball, but I did too. Right? So we have to see it in that way. There's I think we all have heard of Southwest Airlines. They're kind of popularly known as like the happy airlines. Their employees are always joking and telling jokes on the planes, and it's like a pretty good environment. You know, one thing that they've done interesting is that they've prioritized. So you know, they have their customers, they have their employees, and then they have their shareholders. Their rule is that we're prioritizing employee happiness over the other two, over customers and over shareholders. Why? Simple logic. If the employees are happy, they're going to treat the customers with care and respect. The moment employees are feel cared for, they take care of people. And when the people are happy, the customers, they're going to say good things about the company, and they're going to keep flying. The shareholders will be happy because of that, because people are giving them the business. So it's an interesting approach. Everyone's like, oh, customer first. No. The most dedicated people should be getting the most attention, because when they're happy, they'll just give that to everyone else. It's an interesting model. There's one CEO of a financial company. They have 8,000 employees. 8,000 employees. He writes 8,000 birthday cards each year. That's his thing. So he's an interesting personality, obviously, to do that. But what I'd like us to do is, I'd like us all to think in our community, and really make a note of it right now. Which 3 devotees have you not appreciated, but you think you should? Okay, I'm going to give you a 30-second pause, and if you want, you can write it down. But think of 3 devotees that you feel like you haven't appreciated, but probably should. And I'm going to request a thumbs up when you've got 3 names in your head. I'm not going to ask you to tell me those names, but I just want to see a thumbs up from everyone once you have those names. A bunch of people with their screens I don't know what they're doing. Okay, thank you. Okay, there we go. You can still, I think, give a thumbs up even if your screen is blank, I think. I don't know. Okay, so I'm hoping that everybody has thought of those 3 people. Now what I'm going to do is request you sometime during this week. Okay, we're getting some practical exercises here, right? Some action steps. During this week, find some way to appreciate them. Now, in order to appreciate them, you have to think hard what specifically you're going to appreciate them for. And I know it could feel a little awkward. And if it does, you could just shoot them a little text message, a WhatsApp message, a little email, right? Maybe you could just leave a little voice message, go directly into their voice message without even having them answer, I think there's ways to do that. But just imagine yourself for a moment, right? Imagine getting a call from a devotee and they appreciate you. How would you feel, right? Think about that. Just put yourself in that moment, in that scenario where you get the call and they just, specifically and accurately, not going over the top, appreciate something you've done. I think we can all say it would feel good. So this week, we can all make 3 devotees feel good. How's that? And if everyone on this call, now I see it says 39 participants, but behind each window, I'm guessing there's like probably another person there, right? So everybody can appreciate, and one of those devotees could be your family member. Maybe you haven't, appreciated your spouse in 10 years or something. I'm just kidding. I mean, maybe you haven't said something positive to your spouse in a little while. Maybe that's one person that you could say you appreciate. And one person you do some service with, or somebody maybe you just hardly ever talk to. Why not? Why not use the pandemic to make a new relationship? Get to know someone else a little bit better. So now, so that's your little homework I've given. So I'm hoping you'll have fun with that homework. And you'll be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do it without it making you feel weird? Well, it's okay. Just put some thought into it, right? Put some thought into it. It might be fun. Now, there's one type of appreciation that, 2 types that we want to avoid. Now, this one is when Lord Chaitanya, when Rupa Goswami, he so deeply understands Lord Chaitanya's mind. Where Lord Chaitanya is in the mood of Radharani, thinking about Krishna, seeing Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and the ecstasies Radharani is feeling when she sees Krishna, but dressed up in armor and like a king. She's thinking that, I wish I could go back, on the bank of the Yamuna, under the Vetasi tree, and hear the 5th note of Krishna's flute. So she doesn't really like seeing him in that opulent way. She wants to see him, again, just like a cowherd boy. Rupa Goswami understands that that's what Lord Chaitanya is meditating on. And so he writes a beautiful verse composing that. Lord Chaitanya, so Rupa Goswami leaves that on a leaf, the verse, and he goes and takes a bath. Lord Chaitanya comes and he sees that and he starts reading it. And he's thinking, how did Rupa Goswami understand what's happening in my mind? How did he know that? How could he possibly know my mood and emotions? He's just bewildered. And then Rupa Goswami comes back and offers pranams to Lord Chaitanya. And with a lot of affection and a lot of love, Rupa and Lord Chaitanya embraces him and then mildly slaps him. So please don't appreciate like this, okay? No slapping appreciation, please. So, because I don't want to get in trouble. Like, hey, that's what he quoted. No, this is a message that please don't do that. Otherwise, I'm never going to get, if every next Ramachandra Prabhu calls it, Prabhu, we had 40 people slap each other. I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? Yeah, sorry, Prabhu, I just don't think we can invite you anymore because, you're causing violence in our yatra. So that's a very deep, intimate, transcendental level of love and trust. You can't even describe it. It's this ecstasy where it's not like a hard slap. It's just like he just felt like, how did he get in my head? How did he understand my emotions? So it's an act of love. And then the other kind of appreciation, I'm going to read a couple of verses. This is another kind of appreciation to avoid, different kind. Okay, and I think as soon as I read these verses, you'll know who I'm talking about. O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwathama, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta called Bhurishrava, who are always victorious in battle. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1, verses 7 and 8. Duryodhan, he's glorifying Drona, Bhishma, Ashwathama. He's glorifying and appreciating them. Why? because he needs them to do their job. So it's somewhat motivated appreciation. Appreciation with now you're about to now give them the task. So it's slightly, so the appreciation was done with the intention of getting them to do something. I mean, and I'm guilty of that. I've done that kind of thing before. Right? So ideally, we want to come to a point where we're appreciating without thinking of what task I can ask them to do, that they'll do it because I appreciated them. Appreciation just for the sake of appreciating. That's the point, that's the level we kind of want to get to. And of course, if we're in a management position, we'll need to ask people to do things, but let's just continue the appreciation. And that goes for all of us. So again, whether it's in your family, it's in your devotional community, or it's in the workplace, if possible, appreciate without some motive in the back of your mind. That, oh, I really need them to do this. Maybe I should go ahead and make a little deposit and then immediately a withdrawal. So those are some of my thoughts. And also one final thing in terms of this appreciation, and we'll open it up for questions, is not everybody likes to be appreciated in the same manner. And this is also important. So for example, if someone's very extroverted, enjoys the public light, I fall into that category. I don't mind the public appreciation. It's a little embarrassing, but not so bad. My false ego enjoys it. And then there are those who are more introverted, who actually really don't like public praise. It just bothers them like anything. So if we want to appreciate, it's also kind of good to know who we're appreciating, and are we actually appreciating them? Or are we making them really cringe, like really feeling uncomfortable because they got glorified in front of everyone? And different situations may call for different things, right? It's a big celebration, someone did a lot of service and you appreciate them in front of everyone, great. It's just good to know, like, did they appreciate that appreciation, or did they like really just want to like, you know, dig a hole and dive in? Because some people just really don't like that. So it's just one final point to think about. And yeah, so those were my thoughts on appreciation, being accurate, being specific, being somewhat regular in how often we do it, to do it in our personal life, in our professional life, and also within our devotional community, very important. So I'll open it up here and see if there are any questions that I could maybe answer, or if somebody wants to make a comment or something like that.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much for speaking on this very, very important topic. Just last week in our Bhakti Vriksha, I was mentioning about the importance of investing in devotees, you know, from the spiritual background, how important it is, because at the times of difficulties, you know, we all ask for prayers from the devotees. And we tend to get those prayers when we know, when devotees know each other and they care for each other. Those prayers are even more intense, more pure, more strong. So you rightly said about depositing, making some deposits. So before we move into question and answers, Prabhu, I'd like to ask you about, you just recently wrote, and your new book got published. I just got a copy of it this week, Closing the Apps.
Okay.
Can you share a little bit about what this book is all about, and maybe post a link to the book in the chat also, so if anybody's interested, they can get it.
Sure. Here, let me see. Here's a link. I think that's the link. Let me see here.
How to be mindful at work and at home.
Yeah. So the book is called, Closing the Apps, How to be Mindful at Work and at Home. And here's the, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it here. So, I'll just share the picture of the book really quickly so you can see it So as you can see, the picture is there's a head, right? And then there's these things coming out of there. And this is the stuff that I think we're always thinking about or worrying about, right? We're thinking about our family life, we're thinking about our work life, we're thinking about our money, our finances, we're thinking about our recreational life, relationships, all of these things. So the idea is, generally when I give my corporate talks, I compare our mind to a smart device, like our smart device. We all have a few of these. And I explain that when we have too many apps open on our smart device, it slows the smart device down. And so the question I like to ask is, how many apps do you think are open in your mind right now? And if and people like 10, 15, 20, who knows how many things we're actually thinking about right now? There's always a bunch of things that we're worried about. And wouldn't it be great if we could learn to close out those apps? Because if we could, how much more focused, how much more positive, how much more productive would we be in everything that we're doing? And how much more could we be present with the person in front of us if we could close out all the stuff that's distracting us? I think we've all had the experience where you're having a conversation with someone and your mind drifts away and you stop listening to what they're saying. So this book is based on the corporate lectures I give around the country and overseas as well. It's a secular book, but it's filled with tips on how to manage our mind, how to be mindful in our everyday life, what it means to be mindful, how to be more productive at our workplace. So that's sort of what the book is centered on. And yeah, so that's, and then, people wanted a resource after my lectures and I didn't have one. So I wrote the book. So I'm like, okay, after my lectures, they can now get a book and go deeper into it. And the back of the book, and like there's certain sections of at the end of each chapter, there are, I've given some like places with writing exercises, just like I gave you all an exercise, right? So there are places where you can write down answers to questions I've asked. I've also provided little charts where you can fill out things. Like I just want it to be really practical. I want it to really help people. So it's like $10 on Amazon. So this is something you can gift to your colleagues as well. It's very secular because it's based on my corporate lectures. So yeah, so that's a little bit about the book. And please, if you can, get a copy. And I hope you like it. And if you do, you can write a review on Amazon for me. Just keep it secular and professional review. Don't mention Hari Bowles and Prabhu's on there on the reviews. So yeah, so I thought I'd say that much about the book. And then.
Thank you for sharing that, Prabhu. I look forward to spending this week reading this book and putting a comment.
And I had the good fortune of a professor from the Columbia University Business School write the foreword to the book, actually. I had spoken for his executive MBA class, and then I asked him to write a foreword, so he wrote the foreword to the book, actually. So I'm kind of happy that he was able to do that. So,
Bruce Craven.
Bruce Craven, yeah.
I believe Gopal Govind Prabhu has a question.
Yes, Prabhu, please ask.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Nice talk, very practical as usual. Always your talks are very interesting and very practical. Question is really a couple of points you mentioned and just looking for some clarification on that. One is appreciation. So appreciation differs with personality, but there are times where if you hear a appreciation from a person who's mostly critic pretty much most of the time, and if you hear an appreciation, even if it is genuine, kind of makes you feel awkward that what is wrong with this person, why he's appreciating today. So that's one thing. Other thing, in the work environment, I really love the idea you mentioned that like a CEO distributing 8,000 cards. That's kind of amazing. That can just change the whole equation in the professional environment, how to build a relation. I really love that idea. Thank you.
Yeah, and what happened is on his 60th birthday, he got 8,000 cards. Everybody wrote him one. His office was like filled with cards. They actually just like filled them up everywhere. But yeah, and that can happen anywhere, home, work, or devotional community. It's just, if we can do it, we can just take it up and start appreciating devotees, Thank you.
Vijay Prabhu is raising his hand.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu, fantastic class. Just wanted to let you know that I did get the book already from Kindle. I'm excited to hear it. Thank you again. As a small business owner, I'm opposite Rockefeller Center, and what I took from your class today is I do appreciate everybody, my vendors. I deal with more than couple of thousand customers a year. We're an online presence based out of New York. But one thing I want to implement tomorrow, the first thing among my employees or my team members, I call them, is they got to start appreciating each other. Sometimes they're only nice when I'm in the room, and and that thing I need to. I took this. I learned that from your class today. It should not only come from top down or bottom up. It should be more lateral too. We are doing that mistake, especially in different divisions, from creativity to development to, and they're not nice sometimes.
Because a culture doesn't depend
Yeah.
on one person. A culture is dependent on everyone.
Correct. Yeah. And I need to implement that. So thank you again. It was a wonderful class. We do that a lot. Thanks for Ramchandra Prabhu's leadership. He keeps coaxing us and keeps pushing us and make sure that you reach out. Today also I had Rohan Prabhu, reach out to me independently, individually about my wife giving a class and I'm giving a class, and we are kind of novice. We're not really very, very strong with our Sanskrit and everything. So I think we have something very good going, but more on a material level, business level, I think we got to do more. I'm very good to my vendors. Naturally, I'm making profits out of them.
Mhm. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yes. So thank you again. I'm kind of very keen. If it goes well, I'll try to buy a few more books and give it to my employees too. That'll be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, because then they'll also read it. See, then they'll read it from someone else, as opposed to hearing it from you, right? It also makes a difference. And it's a very easy read, and there'll be exercises in the back of that chapter on appreciation, on how you can appreciate, who you can appreciate, how does it feel. Yeah, coming from someone else, a book, and then you can talk about it, then it's like it helps.
And I think you priced it pretty well. I was surprised, very pretty thick book for that price.
Well, that price isn't going to be lasting forever. That's my introductory price. It's going to go up to $15 in a couple of weeks. So get your copies now.
Got it.
This is like the Black Friday going on, but for like a good few weeks.
For a black cover book, so it makes sense.
There you go.
All right, good. Thank you again. We are always such a pleasure to have you. Please keep coming. It's fun. Thank you for your time. The most valuable thing one could give each other today is time.
That's true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
More than ever before.
I keep telling that to Ramchandra Prabhu. What we offer to all of us, Deepak Chopra charges $400 an hour, with a Central Park house.
Yeah.
So we are super lucky, with Krishna's, mercy. We have such wonderful devotees around us. Thank you again.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that this is not just today, but even all the time, that if we pay attention to Srila Prabhupada's life and teachings, this is all what Srila Prabhupada was all about: caring for his devotees, caring for people who are suffering out there. I mean, just the care itself is what attracted people to him. So if we just pay attention to these things, and you had rightly, you were saying that sometimes why do we not reach out? We know that we need people, we need associations, but why do we not reach out? Just yesterday, I was talking to somebody who I called a few times, and finally I got hold of the person, and the devotee was saying that, in apologizing to the extent that, I'm so sorry that I haven't been returning, and you're so caring. But in my mind, I was like, I'm calling you because I need your association. But in my mind, I was thinking, what is it that's stopping the devotee from calling? I mean, these days, I was telling my son that when I met your mother, we didn't have internet. We didn't have cell phones. I used to write letters and send, she was in India, I was here. But still, where there is a way, where there's a will, there's a way. So today, having all the gadgets, and this is a question more, Prabhu, to you, that why still people do not reach out to each other?
I think that we've become maybe just a little bit impersonal, unfortunately. And I think also we're not living in communities anymore. Everyone is so separated from one another that it becomes easier to just kind of hide yourself in your home. Like when you have like a community living where people are living close to each other, I think there's a certain bond that's created. But our lifestyles, like, I mean, we don't even know our neighbors. I'm guessing a lot of us don't know our neighbors' first names. Maybe we do. But it's like, your car goes in the garage door closes, and you go in your house through the door. Like, so it's like, I think one reason is that we aren't living in communities where we can see each other. We don't even know our neighbors. And I do think that all the devices that we have, we're just glued to them. They have gotten us addicted. And any free time we're just watching a show or something else, it's like, we're all at this point where just like the human interaction is minimized because there's so much going on the internet, and there's so much stuff to watch that it becomes easier to do that and isolate yourself. And you don't realize that isolation is actually hurting you. It's making you more lonely. But we'll just do it anyways because it's easier. And then we get lazy in our mind. Our mind gets lazy to call someone, to talk to someone. So like a laziness kicks in. Whereas the community, you're always active, So I think that's one thing that I think our devices are overall like being out of community. I think all of these things are factors. And ultimately we just have to try to do it, And
also, Prabhu, nowadays we are scared of rejection, I guess, that when someone is calling, or if I am rejected, it kind of discourages you because you don't know the person's mood at that given date and time. So we are being polite by texting, hey, you got a minute? And then we call. So it's getting more and more polite. Yeah.
Before, I mean, also for me, that we just would go knock on our friend's door and say, hey, you want to go out and, play. Now it's like, your friend won't even answer your call. You got to text them, make an appointment and then call your friend. And, so it's like, you can't show up at their door. Forget that. That was like, they'll freak out, What are you doing? What's going on? It's like, you won't even answer the door, who knows? So our society's changed a little, but we can change things for ourselves, I think, we can change things for ourselves. So.
And we still have that culture still going on in our community. I just had somebody who showed up at my door.
That's nice.
For the class. And I was very happy. There was no call, there was nothing. And the devotee just came and we were, Atithi, right? Atithi Devo Bhava, we say. When uncalled or unannounced, somebody comes is as good as welcoming the Lord. So that is the culture we want to revive actually again with devotees. We just don't need to. And many times people I've seen is that they would not want that to happen because they're probably doing something where they don't want to be somebody knocking at the door when there is, something going on, like maybe a movie or, whatever it may be. So please call me before I clean up my house and, everything is ready so I can welcome you, right? Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, that's okay to do. It's just give a quick heads up, because we are busy. There's lots going on in our life. You may just walk in at the wrong time, Like they may be in the middle of, who knows, maybe like there's a little argument going on in the middle of the house. Now you can't like greet someone. So we don't want to be just like knocking on each other's doors, I think, right away, So, but I think there's another hand up.
Hare Krishna,
Abhay
Prabhu.
Krishna, Abhay. Oh, go ahead, Manini Mataji.
No, I was just wanted to add to it. Like I was just reading something today, and it says, as a child, we 11 friends used to get together to get a small ball so we could play together. Because today I can afford the ball, but I do not have the 11 friends that would come together. So it is so true in today's day and age that although we have all the gadgets, but it's like people are not ready to kind of even communicate. They'll communicate with one another in the room,
when they're sitting at, one, but they will not, have a visual, like a talking points or something like that. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thank you.
Abhay?
Hare Krishna Roji, thank you for the wonderful class. I just had a small thought that came into my mind. It was actually regarding our, the norm that's going on now among us teenagers and the younger generation. It's usually saying that basically that whenever you try to appreciate someone or try to show like a sign of, like any appreciation or any kindness, you could say, that's like especially among guys, it's like a sign of weakness. So I don't know, like, do you have any thoughts on that, Prabhu? So if you can add on anything.
Oh, yeah, I see. Like with guys, right? Especially like younger. I guess you could appreciate when they're like, like if you're playing basketball and make a good shot, you can give them a fist bump or something like that. That could be cool. Something like that. Yeah, I mean, you know what? And if it's something genuine, if you see them doing something genuinely nice, it doesn't have to be formal. It could just be more casually, like that was really good, just something quick and easy. It doesn't have to be awkward and weird and formal, right? In that way. So I think with like the younger folks, I think it could just be like a little bit more casual. But the point is that you're just training yourself to become alert, to notice the contributions of others. And when you actually notice, and even if you tell your friend, like, man, that was really cool that how this person, you were serving up prasad and it had finished, but then you ran into the kitchen and got some more and you went out of your way to do that for them. That was really cool that you give up your plate for them. That was really cool that you did that. Like they're going to like that. They're going to be like, oh, wow. Now it's going to inspire them to do more sacrifice in the future for others. Like you just helped them go to another level and your friendship went deeper because of that. And you also trained yourself to notice others. Now, as you go into college, as you go into the workplace, you're trained up to do that. And now people are going to like you. They're going to collaborate with you more. You'll just have more trusting friendships and relationships. So the point is, do it, how you do it, notice it, how you do it. You got to figure that out a little bit. But you're training yourself to just notice others,
Thank you, Roji. That was a wonderful answer.
Okay, great. Glad it helped.
Dheeraj Pal, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
There you
Prabhuji,
go.
one quick question on this appreciation topic, and this is really kind of an interesting topic, and it differs person to person and the community to community. One quick question on the corporate side. Many times we keep on appreciating our colleague, our team members. Sometimes even the appreciation, I don't know if it is well received on purpose, or it is like not received in a right manner, either on purpose or it is like ignored, and it's very difficult to kind of understand or keep ourselves motivated so that we keep on appreciating even if you're not getting acknowledged on those appreciations. So how to deal with those situations?
So the situation is that you're appreciating but it's not being received properly.
Yeah, either it is not received properly or not. I mean, most of the time what have been observed is not acknowledged on purpose.
Oh, it's not acknowledged. Like what? They're just like ignoring you when you appreciate them?
Yeah, it's like it's not only me. I'm just talking in the group. Like when people appreciate,
Okay.
it just goes like, okay, nothing happened, kind of thing.
Yeah, that sounds a little weird.
Yeah,
I don't know. It definitely sounds weird. I don't know what's going on in that work culture. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't know. I'd have to know a little bit more. Like, what's the history of that place that's brought them to this point where they don't respond when they get appreciated? Like, what's happened to them, These poor folks, I feel bad that they have to be in an environment where, like, they can't receive appreciation. So usually there's a history behind something like that. It didn't just
Yeah.
because every human being likes the appreciation. There's something that's happened there, or maybe a bunch of things that have happened that affected that workplace culture in a way that people feel that way and acting that way. I don't know what that is, what the history is. And again, and you know, if it's not working, then maybe, you know, if it makes you stick out in some weird way, then better not to do it, you know. If somehow it makes you look like the odd one out, then maybe just don't be the odd one out and just don't do it. But you know, but if you can do it in a good, genuine way, in a more maybe you could do it in a more, as opposed to public, in a more private way. I don't know. Maybe that's something, you know, with your relationship with someone. So
Yeah, I think the private one might help. I'll try that. But the thing is that initially I thought it's only me and my appreciation is not getting acknowledged, but it's not true. It's like we observed, okay, anyone appreciating it, they're like, okay, it might be, okay, that doesn't matter to us.
yeah. So yeah, try the private one. That may, you know, at least what happens is then you build a good relationship with the person you appreciated. And that now you have one good, you know, friend at work, which is really important to have that.
Yep, no, definitely. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
There you go.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Satish. It was a nice class, Prabhu. Like you said, I mean, everyone some or the other way is looking for, or not looking, may not everybody is looking, but then like to be appreciated. But then how do we practice something where, I mean, how to not look for appreciation, but then still stay motivated to do what we have to do?
Well, first of all, I do think that it's kind of natural for us to want some kind of, to be valued in some way. You know, I think every human being wants to be valued in some way or another. So I don't think there's anything really wrong with that, you know. Don't have to feel bad or guilty, you know, for wanting some appreciation. First of all, you know, I don't think it's anything, you know, like which human being can be on that platform of unmotivated service? Remember, that's like the highest level that the Bhagavatam's talking about, right? We're not there. So don't feel guilty for wanting appreciation. We all like it. It feels good. It's good for another person to appreciate as well. It's good for the one who's appreciating. It builds a bond between those two people. So, you know, so I think that don't be too hard on yourself, you know, because I think it's natural. It's not unnatural. And I think that's the thing I want to kind of communicate, you know, it's not unnatural to want it. And you keep serving. When it's meant to come, it'll come. If it doesn't, then you just keep serving. You know, you just keep serving. And if your heart wants it, then it's don't feel guilty that you want it. You know, but if it doesn't come, then you also have to be detached. That means Krishna's not letting it happen right now for whatever reason.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you, bro. We'll look forward to read your new book.
Great. Tell me how you like it when you do read it.
I really loved your first book. I keep, you know, talking about it to others. And well, today I had another friend joining with me to listen to your class. He really liked it. And he really, he decided to listen to more lectures from the Sangha. I mean, the Bhakti Vishavi, I mean, the association we have. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Oh, good. Glad you brought your friend into the thing. Amazing.
Thank you, bro. Very well.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Ramchandra Prabhu, can I ask one quick question?
Yeah.
One quick. Prabhuji, I was just skipping through your chapters. Beautiful. You know, already with your book. One quick thing before I wanted to absorb more. The mindfulness which you're talking about in the book, and again, I did not read too deep, so pardon my question. would I be able to relate that to the japa meditation we do, or would you differentiate that from the japa?
So basically, the definition I use of mindfulness is becoming aware of your thoughts and emotions and bringing your mind to the present moment.
Fair.
If your mind is in the present moment, you'll chant with more attention. And then it's also good to know what are your thoughts and emotions. Like you sit down to chant japa and maybe you just had a big fight with your somebody in the family, right? So in that moment, it doesn't really help to pick up the japa. Maybe you need to take 5 minutes and calm yourself down. Because now you're going to be chanting angry japa. You'll be basically still arguing with your family member as you're doing Hare Krishna, you know? So I think you need to be mindful that I'm in a disturbed state of mind. So mindfulness means being self-aware, knowing what's happening up here. So if you're disturbed, if you're upset, take a few minutes for yourself. Go walk around the block. Do some pranayam. Do a couple of Surya Namaskars. Get rid of some of that energy and then pick up your bead bag, right? So it's just about having that awareness.
So that's why they push you to do it like the Brahma Mutra, because they know that given time you didn't have fights with anyone. You went to sleep.
Probably. Yeah, everyone's sleeping at that time, so there's less chance for fighting, you know? So
wonderful. I'm excited. I like the chapter 3 too, you know, fantastic. Thank you.
Good.
It's very well explained. Very simple language. It's, you know, I like that. I like the fact also, like 70% of the women joined the yoga class rather than the men trying to do it, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm a simple person. I try to keep it simple, but thank you. I'm glad you're liking it.
Excellent.
We're going to finish the whole book before this Bhakti Riksha is over.
No, not that. I just wanted to catch some point to catch you. I mean, okay. Imagine the chance of getting the book and the author together, you know. That's a rare thing.
You can get my information from Ramchandra Prabhu and feel free to write me.
Fantastic.
So you do that. So there's one more question we'll take, and then we'll conclude. There's one more person with their hand up, so we'll take this last question.
Yeah, Madhvi Sita, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have a question regards to the question was asked before Vijay Prabhu. So you mentioned that we all look for appreciation and we are not at that level. So my question is that in times of crisis, right, we are advised many times or give an example of exalted devotees like Kunti Maharani, to become like Kunti Maharani or to have that attitude or to have a tolerance like Kunti Maharani. So how do we connect these two thoughts?
I'm going to be bold and say that's, definitely that advice is a little ridiculous to give. I think telling someone to be like Kunti Maharani or Haridas Thakur, I think it's definitely a little ridiculous to give that advice to a person who is, we are all fully submerged in our false egos, and we can't even chant one round we can't even chant a quarter round attentively. In the second or third bead, our mind is already like planning 20 different things. So I don't think giving that advice is reasonable. It's like asking someone who's just learning arithmetic to solve a calculus problem. I think it's just, and I think what it also does is that it makes the person going through the problem, could make them feel worse, because there's no way in hell they're going to have the same mentality like Kunti Maharani, who's a Nitya Siddha, who's an eternally liberated soul. Like, we're supposed to imitate that. We can remember them, but I think the person going through something difficult just probably needs some comforting. You just need your association at that point. See what you can do to help them. Be there for them. Sit with them. Accompany them. Cook a meal for them. Be there for them and encourage them in some way. I wouldn't ask somebody to be like Haridas Thakur when they're going through a difficult thing. Like, how are they going to do that? Like, how's that supposed to happen? I mean, if that could happen, wouldn't I do it all the time? Like, would I need to do my sadhana and all that if I could just be like Haridas Thakur? Like, it's kind of ridiculous. And I know we have all done this kind of thing, but including myself. But the more I've thought about it, it's kind of a ridiculous advice to give. we can study and inspire them, but if someone's going through something painful, the best thing is give yourself to them and help them some way. It's not really the time to quote the most exalted people like, hey, you should be like them. Like, are you serious? What are you talking about? You know, it makes no sense. So anyways, that's my opinion on that. I think you would just be human, sit with them, comfort them, care for them, see what we can do to practically serve them, help them get through it. And, you know, because quoting scripture at that time in that way, I think it's maybe even a little irresponsible. Depends on the situation. So that's my thought.
Thank you very much, Prabhupada.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramchandra Prabhu, for inviting me. And it's a pleasure, again, to just kind of stay connected with everyone. We can't all meet in person. Hopefully someday. We don't know when exactly, but until then, at least we're getting together like this. I think you guys have a great community. And I hope that you always stay really tightly knit, appreciate one another, forgive one another, care for one another, support one another, and just keep moving forward together. That's the only way to move forward. Put little things behind us. Don't worry about them. Resolve things quickly. Don't let them sit around for weeks, months, and years. Just talk about it, get it over with. We're all mature adults. Move on, keep serving, keep being friends. And I think that's the simple things we can do. So I just want to thank you all for giving me this opportunity.